Resuming debate, the honourable member for Thornhill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, congratulations on taking that seat. I hope that you bring back dignity and honour to that office, and I know that you will. And I'd like to just start off by saying that I'm splitting my time with the member from Battle River Crowfoot, somebody who I have known to be a great colleague and a friend. I think we're going to miss him around here. And I told him when he's made the decision that he's about to tell you, I called him a mensch, and I told him that he can look that up. And I just want to say thank you to him and Danielle and the entire family for what he's going to do and putting his country first. I also want to thank the people of Thornhill for entrusting me for a second time in taking their seat here in the House of Commons. The first time around, I had the people of Thornhill take a chance on a relatively unknown quantity, filling the shoes of a long-time Conservative MP and former cabinet minister. And the second victory feels a bit more profound because I think that the people of Thornhill have entrusted me with this honour to serve them because of the work that we've done, because of the advocacy that we've done, because of what the team and this party have promised to Canadians. And we've done that with the biggest mandate in the riding's history of any MP. And I am so proud. I am so proud and honored always to have this seat. And it doesn't go, none of this is done on your own. I'd like to thank all of the staff and the volunteers, not only leading up to the election and the election campaign, but for the years before, traveling the country from riding to riding, for all of those who helped, who came in the snow, who came in the rain, who stuffed envelopes and banged in signs and went door to door, talking to everyday Canadians about the issues that matter to them. Thank you to my family, both blood and the ones that you acquire in this journey. Everybody knows that politics is a family business, and I have the best family in the business. They are the ones that are honest with you, the ones that tell you that you're not eating enough, or that a slushie is not considered lunch, or that you look tired, or that jacket doesn't match. The very ones who tell you to go a little bit more, one more event, one more door, talk to one more person, and the ones who also know when it's time to go home because that's better for you. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to my partner who is lax in all of the things that I miss. The dinners and the birthdays of family members, the celebrations that normal people with normal jobs get to do much more often than we do. She has never once put that ahead of what we do for the people of Thornhill. Look, when I ran the first time, I didn't have my mom with me, and I'm part of a club that not a lot of people or not a lot of people my age are part of. I'm part of the Orphan Club, where I've lost both my parents. I lost my father between the first and second election, and he was here for my first election. And I often tell their story because it's the embodiment, I think, of a story that so many share in this country. You see, I come by the conservatism honestly, and I often tell people that I'm a product of a mixed marriage. My mom was a Liberal, and my father was a Conservative. But my mom always said she didn't leave the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party left her, and boy, is that ever true today. She left a long time ago and supported me throughout my journey to elected politics. But I say that because they are the embodiment of the Canadian story, the Canadian immigrant story. They immigrated here from the former Soviet Union. And my dad was an uncredentialed engineer who drove a taxi to put my mom through school. They put two kids through university, who watched them get jobs and homes. I also tell a joke that my parents bought their first home in the place that I now represent for like 7 raspberries and 12 almonds. And they did that on a taxi driver's salary and through a woman who was still in school trying to make it in the corporate world. They did that in a safe neighborhood where they can raise kids the way that they wanted to in the freedom of this country, the freedom that they ran from the Soviet Union to attain. You can't do that anymore. You can't do any of that. And that's what I heard every single day at every single door in more than 40 ridings across the country, from east to west, that young people cannot afford a home. That if you came here and you drove a taxi, it's probably an Uber today. There is no way that you can buy a home in the suburbs, raise 2 kids, send them through university. There's no way that today somebody with my last name whose father was a cab driver can go from the front seat of a taxi to the front row of Parliament Hill in 1 generation. That dream is absolutely dead in this country. Which brings me to a government who was a big part of killing that dream. Over the last 10 years, you see the same ministers. There's like 13 of the same ministers in the front bench. It feels a bit deja vu. Yeah. Saying the exact same things, except for some of the new things that they're saying, which they borrowed from the Conservative platform, which I invite them to borrow more and go all the way. You know, not these half measures that you're seeing with a GST cut that doesn't go far enough and only includes first-time home buyers, or a tax cut that is about half of the one that we promise, which isn't going to stand up when you have a $5,000 mortgage to pay. I say, if you're going to take our ideas, go all the way with them. But which brings me to the speech from the throne, which is an exact regurgitation of what you heard on a campaign, except for without detail. There's no detail. There's no meat on the bones of any of this. It's a lot of grand, lofty statements about what's going to happen and what we are going to do. I mean, this is coming from a prime minister who said a plan is better than no plan, and he was the man with a plan, and we don't see that right now. And I suspect that we're not going to see that because this government and the 13 ministers that were still there, with some of the new ones that now fill that second row, that's what they do. It's a government of lofty statements, and it's the exact reason that when you knock on doors, affordability, crime, immigration was the #1 thing that people talked about in so many different regions. An immigration system which had a consensus in this country for a generation. But let me talk about what the throne speech didn't say, because I would be remiss to say it. I would be remiss if I didn't say it. I come from a community where people in the community are terrified of living in this country. It's not that they feel scared. They are actually in danger. Yes. This government has been absolutely silent on Jews in this country, the ones that were shot at, harassed, businesses being firebombed. Like, we've seen it. Lawless mobs in the streets screaming genocidal slogans at their fellow Canadians. And if you're in the faculty clubs of our universities, or frankly, if you're in the halls of this place or even close to it, or the Liberal Party, I actually didn't think it would be worse than the last foreign minister, but we have a new foreign minister that, whether she knows it or not, is parroting Hamas talking points. And that very same terrorist organization that is listed as a terrorist organization in this country has thanked this country for their position for a second time now. And if you are thanked for a second time by a terrorist organization, I think we all know that you're probably on the wrong side of history. So I don't know if you need to be... thanked for a third time to actually get it, but we've gone from free Palestine to full-blown extremism in this country, just as long as it targets Jews who look a bit too complicit for comfort. Forget nuance and forget humanity. If you squint hard enough, anyone with a Hebrew name or an Israeli cousin is now a war criminal in this country. That's what they've allowed to happen in our streets. And I would have liked to see something in the throne speech. And I know that there are many constituents in many different ridings, and maybe they don't make up the majority of the constituents in those ridings, but if anybody is scared to live in this country, to walk the streets, to wear a yarmulke, to wear a Star of David, to put a mezuzah on the door, if anybody is scared to walk into a synagogue, if anybody is scared to walk into a church because there is official Ottawa who said the church burnings are understandable and say nothing about the Hindu temples that are desecrated in this country, this is not a country. I hope the Prime Minister is successful, because we can't go on like this.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I disagree with many of the things that the member opposite has said. You know, at the end of the day, as a Liberal member of Parliament, and I believe within the very heart of the Liberal caucus, you will see an appreciation of Canada's diversity, which is second to no other caucus. We understand the true value of what diversity can do for Canada, Mr. Speaker, not only for today, but for tomorrow. So when the Prime Minister talks about looking for opportunities that go beyond the relationship between Canada and the United States, we can look at other countries, whether it was from talking about India to Africa to Philippines and so forth. Using that diversity, we can build a stronger and healthier country. And I would challenge the member to be as bold to say and to make the attempt to recognize the important role that diversity plays in our society today.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
I'm not sure that was a question, and perhaps it was a comment, but it is more platitudes from this government that talks about diversity. They talk a strong game about diversity. But when it comes to the actual protection of minorities, for the lawlessness that is in the streets, and not just in the Jewish community, and not just against Christian churches, and not just against Hindu temples, they are nowhere to be found. The same repeat violent offenders, the same mobs of people covering their faces are the ones that rule the streets, and they have been silent about it. So perhaps he can tell the Prime Minister that this is actually a problem, since the Prime Minister has come back to Canada, and he can advise him on doing something rather than saying nothing, or in the case when they do say something, that it is not parroting the talking points of a terrorist organization.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Shefford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. At the beginning of her speech, she talked about housing, which is a concern to many people currently, given the situation, the difficulty accessing property and finding housing. But in the throne speech, what we saw was the Liberal government's desire to transform itself into a developer at the expense of Quebec and the province's jurisdiction and the municipalities. So my question is, could this be a Conservative Party influence, because the Conservatives had the same desire to deal directly with the municipalities on housing, bypassing the provinces? So basically, that's bypassing Quebec and provincial jurisdiction. The honourable member for Thornhill.
To the de-accelerator funding or whatever the last scheme of the Liberal government was in terms of giving municipalities more money in order to block more home building. It's the exact opposite of what we have said. When I talked about home ownership in the speech, I talked about it as an aspiration that so many in this country have, and the blocking of it from governments right across the board, municipal, federal, provincial, who don't see the value in actually getting home built. In fact, we have a housing minister whose record in Vancouver was to have housing prices rise 180%, who is now building a bureaucracy rather than building homes, who is married to the generational divide that the Liberals have caused in this last election between those who own their home and those aspiring to get one. That is not the right course of action, and Conservatives will stand ready to make sure that we bring the solutions to the floor of this House of Commons, and they take more of our ideas on it.
Honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to thank the member for her powerful words about anti-Semitism. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, and I remember growing up and hearing some of the stories she would share with us about her experiences. And it is very dark to see some of the things that have happened in this country and other Western countries around the world. I did want to ask the member about youth unemployment, the rise we're seeing, and what she's seeing in particular in her riding in terms of the unemployment crisis that's going right now.
Great question.
Seconds.
Speaker, I would be the first one to tell you that I don't want to talk about anti-Semitism in this House or ever in this country, and I don't think anybody should ever have to. But the fact that they don't leads me to use this seat and speak for my community. With regards to youth unemployment, look, I think the data is very clear. We're seeing the highest youth unemployment in Ontario. We're seeing the highest unemployment rates in Ontario, and